Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Welcome back to Sela Social Studies. The last thing we're going to cover in Chapter 13 about the institution of slavery is the Southern economy and how much it was based upon slavery. A couple of things we're going to cover here. Of course, the sectionalism, putting your part of the nation before the good of the whole country. We're going to talk about industry, very little industry in the South, slavery, the rich and the poor. Okay, so there's an auction for a slave house there. All right, so during this time of cotton production in the South, prices for major Southern crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo are falling after the Revolution because of those trade problems brought up with the Embargo Act and the Non-Intercourse Act. So all of those big trade goods that we sent out are now taking a tumble. However, demand for American cotton skyrockets, right? So demand for cotton in Britain making cloth. Remember, they were the first ones in the Industrial Revolution in the textiles, right? They became the #1 textile. But where did they get their cotton from? They got their cotton from the southern part of the United States. So Great Britain winds up becoming the southern part of the United States' most valued foreign trading partner. And slavery was decreasing again, remember, until Eli Whitney created that cotton gin. This is why we're covering the 1790 to 1860, because it's that cotton gin in 1790 that really makes slavery explode in the South. The Southern economy was based on agriculture and plantation farming, while the North was based on industry. Remember that. So who's making the more money here, the Northerners or the Southerners? You have to say the Northerners, because in the Southerners, you're talking about that 1/2 to 1% of planters who have all that money, a couple of yeoman farmers, 25% or so. But really, the North in industry is being a lot more successful than the South and their reliance on the institution of slavery. Cotton is king in the South. There is no question about that. After tobacco leaves as the major export, cotton makes its way in. We already covered the cotton gin. It made cotton so profitable that Southern farmers abandoned all their other crops, and the development of new types of cotton helped speed the production throughout the South as well as far as west as Texas. So if you look at that map right there in the middle, the top one again is the cotton gin, takes the seeds out of the cotton, and that's that picture in the middle right there. That's what we call the Cotton Belt. Those were the states that really started growing nothing but cotton. And I'll give you a hint, a strong hint. That is those same states right there that secede from the United States during the after the election of Abraham Lincoln, and they are the ones who the North fight during the Civil War. The United States produced more than 75% of the cotton growth in the world by 1840. Cheap American cotton, because it was harvested by slaves, right? The slaves didn't get paid, remember, right? So you have this economy that is based off of slave labor. So 75% of the world's cotton, cheap American cotton. This economic boom attracted new settlers, so there's some wealth growing amongst some of the small farmers in the South. Slavery is firmly established in the South because of cotton, and the removal of Native Americans, as we covered in previous chapters by Andrew Jackson. Remember, he removed the Native Americans so farmers can farm more land. Cotton has many advantages as a cash crop. Remember, those cash crops are crops that you sell for cash. They're not staple crops, ones that you need to live or to eat. Tobacco is a cash crop. Cotton is a cash crop. You don't see too many people walking around eating their T-shirts. It was inexpensive to market, easy to store, easy to transport. It increased trade. It led to growth in port cities, like, again, Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans. I must have said those two cities a whole bunch of times. It had a disadvantage on the land. That middle picture right there, right? That's like a desert, a dry desert type land. But cotton is a crop that really, really damages the soil. It sucks up all the nutrients in the soil. So in order to fix that, farmers in the South would use crop rotation. So if you look outside today in the southern states, like where we live in North Carolina, you will see we have a rotation of crops. One year they might grow cotton. Then the next year it might be corn. then soybeans, then tobacco. They rotate crops so they don't kill the soil as much as if you just grew cotton and cotton and cotton. The cotton industry was very labor intensive. The need for more slaves because the invention of the cotton gin increased the Atlantic slave trade, and instead of paying free workers, these planters used these enslaved African Americans. So you have to think about that 1% of the South who are getting paid a lot of money living in those big plantation houses, while the slaves are making very little. The slaves are making no money. Yeoman farmers are making a little bit of money, but they're working side by side with their slaves. Agriculture of the South, corn was the primary food crop. We actually crop rotate with corn as well. Other food crops as rice, sweet potatoes, wheat, and sugarcane were also grown. Actually, the government had to kind of step in and say, whoa, pump the brakes on growing that cotton, because if everybody grows cotton, the stuff that you normally grew in the South, we're not growing anywhere else. So we need sugarcane, we need wheat, we need sweet potatoes. Tobacco production increased when a slave developed an improved drying process. So a slave actually thought up a better way to dry the tobacco leaves, and just like the cotton gin, that had a negative effect on slavery. Wow, we can dry cotton better this way, so we could dry more. It's faster, we could sell it cheaper, we could do it more efficiently, and since we could start growing some more cotton because now, or more tobacco, because now tobacco can be more profitable, right? And as long as agricultural products like cotton and tobacco remain high, investors wanted to invest in land. Planters, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of acres of land used for farming in the South. Now, what you see right there in front of you, that's historic Tredegar Ironworks located in Virginia. The South did have some, very, very few, but it did have some industry, because, you had all these farmers in the South. They needed some more of those John Deere plows or some of those Cyrus McCormick wheat harvesters. So they would build factories in the South, would build things to meet the farmers' need. The first steam-powered sawmill was built in Louisiana in 1803. Entrepreneurs began investing into more cotton mills in 1840. Again, ironworks here, producing some iron, some industry, and some northern economy. All right, so this was a very brief history about the institution of slavery, the demographics of the South, especially cotton in the South, right? Here's like the kind of review for chapter 13, right? Slavery was horrific. It was a major stain on the history of America as well as the history of the world. And slavery is still going on today. Now, yes, it was abolished after the Civil War in 1865. However, the mark on our history is still seen today. Tobacco, cotton, that is what drove the Southern economy for hundreds of years, right? Tobacco was the first primary export. Then, whenever cotton was able to be harvested more cheaply with the invention of the cotton gin in the North, this is why the Southern economy was based on slavery. This is why the Civil War was fought over slavery. The way of life of the Southerners in the South, right, was driven by slavery. The South was way behind the North in the 1790s to 1860s. Even after that, after the Civil War, during the time of Reconstruction, and then Jim Crow segregation, the effects of what we see today in our world today is based on history of not so far in the past. So we all have to learn about where we were so we can fix where we are now. So chapter 13 covered agriculture in the South, slavery in the South, and why the South was so far behind the North, because the North concentrated more on industry, the South concentrated more on slavery.